So here we are, Jill, Sabrina, and myself, Mignon, and we've come together again. And today we're going to discuss about chaos and the chaos happening around us and how we can center and ground ourselves in peace and in presence and in knowing that no matter what happens around us or within us or in our lives, that we can still come back to the place of knowing in truth and in presence and in peace. So yes, I hope this resonates with people. So Jill, do you want to start off?
I guess so, since you called on me. Good morning. Good morning in the UK and good morning in Ireland. I'm here in Blowing Rock, North Carolina, today, and yes, there's a lot of chaos going on in the world and in the United States, also, and it has been a very interesting journey the last several months. And it almost feels like you can feel an energy like when you go out into the world. Um, and sometimes it feels a little bit aggressive. Sometimes it feels a little bit sketchy and uncomfortable. And I'm pretty tapped in. I feel like I'm a pretty intuitive person. And so I'm very hyper vigilant about my surroundings. And a lot of that was really about um, my lifestyle. And early in my 20s, I was gay bashed in a really horrific way. And from that moment on, I was only 20 when that happened to me, and it kind of gave me a sense of like I had an inner detector, and that's when I started really starting to pay attention to energies around me. And but I feel very secure in who I am now. I feel like I am protected by a bubble around me no matter where I go. And also, I do a lot of work to keep myself grounded, to keep myself centered. And that includes trying really hard to stay away from the news, and all of that, because it's so easy to get sucked into it. When you start social media, and social media, I feel like is a great tool. I feel like it's something that we can use in a positive way. And that's what I've really tried to do with it over these last, I think I've been involved with social media for about maybe 15 years now. And really, I got on there just to promote my stonework, and the yoga studio when I was part owner of a yoga studio. But over the years, I've seen that really transition into a kind of a whipping post for some things and some people. And I really just try to steer clear on that and use it as a good tool. And for instance, we were talking earlier about I have a good friend who had a really bad, horrific car accident this past Sunday and was airlifted to the hospital in Asheville. And they wasn't sure that she was going to make it. There was a chance she could lose her leg. And yesterday I just got so moved. Something inside of me was like, I got to say something. They need help, and I try to put myself in other people's shoes. And Nita, my friend, is a landscaper. She's been working in nature and outdoors her whole life. She's 67 years old. And, being self-employed, as y'all know, it's like, it's sink or swim, baby. You got to have some income. And I don't know, I got on social media and I just started telling, like, please, and asking people for help. And I think a lot of people came forth and are helping them. And I'm so grateful. And whoever is watching this that contributed, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I know that Nita and Sharon are so appreciative, because it could be any one of us. It's a split second in time that something can happen. And, if you don't have a lot of support and a lot of family and stuff like that, then, you're on your own. And I feel like as a world, part of this for me is coming together as community and helping people, whether they're in another country. I mean, if something happened to one of you, I'd get on a fucking plane and I'd get over there and I would help you, because that's my job. My job on this earth is to serve and to help other people. And, in whatever way I can do that. So, but keeping myself grounded and keeping myself centered and not losing it, um, it can be a full-time job sometime, because I have a history of a downhill spiral. I can go dark if I let myself, but that's where Louise Hay's work comes in on getting out in front of those thoughts in the morning. And I laid in my bed this morning, and this house bed, I'm in somebody else's house, but I laid there and I woke up at 2:30 a.m. I'm like, this is way too early. I thought, well, I'll just sit here and thank my body. And I started at my toes and I thanked every part of my entire body for serving me and for being here for me because of what's happened to my friend, and how lucky and fortunate I am to have my health, all my fingers, all my toes, all my appendages, my organs, everything. And that carries me through these days, and how going out and doing the kind of work I do. And I'm facing a really kind of hard project right now. And I ask, would you show me today and reveal to me what I need to know? And in my meditation, I had, laugh at this, but I saw myself getting all these bags of concrete mix, and I'm like, oh no. But it was like, it was the solution for what I need on this. And I'm like, duh, why didn't I think of that? And, but it came to me. It came through my thoughts when I was just floating in my little whatever meditation, and I saw the concrete and I went, there it is. So it's about taking that time to just ground and to listen, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. For me, yeah, definitely, Jill, you've hit on some of the things that for me, having some sort of a daily practice of connecting with yourself. And for me, certainly the gratitude you talked about, being grateful for every part of your body. And for me to have a gratitude practice every day and a breathing practice or a meditation practice certainly calms the inside of you, no matter what's going on the outside. And becoming aware of, my own behaviors, going on to social media, and they say you are what you eat, but we don't just eat food. We consume news, we consume social media, we consume what people say to us. We're consuming all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's being mindful when we do go on to these apps of what your brain's consuming through them. So one of my practices now is to stay away from the news, to stay away from the more denser energies that can be out there, and to bring it back into yourself, into your body, into the moment. And so there's lots of lovely little things that we can do every day, and it doesn't even necessarily need to take that long. Um, for me, my practice is around an hour, but it could be a 5-minute practice. And knowing what fills your cup. And the other thing you mentioned, Jill, was there was something quite devastating happened to your friend, but out of it sparks generosity from humanity. And so all of these humanitarian crises are calling for our hearts to step forward and to come together. And so often when we see a lot of disasters and a lot of chaos in the world, there is also a thread of love and humanity who want to help, who want to step forward, who want to help their fellow man. And so, as Abraham Hicks would say, that's a contrast of life. That's a contrast of life. So, out of something negative comes love, comes generosity, comes compassion. And so all of these opportunities in the world are all of these events in the world are an opportunity for us to step forward as humans and to practice the love that is in our hearts. So for me, out of something bad can become, or bad can become something quite miraculous. And we've seen that over and over again in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I completely agree. You both have said it all. And it is so true. I think the first thing is being aware of what's happening around you, being aware what's happening in society, being aware of what's happening in your own life. For me, growing up, there was a lot of things that happened that brought a lot of discomfort within myself, brought a lot of unease within myself. And understanding that and then knowing how to then go back to yourself and have this ritual or have a routine or a practice that can really support you in your own well-being. And I have also noticed, it's not just me, I've noticed how it impacts my family members, just like listening to the news or listening to the disasters happening where we come from, like rapes happening, injustice happening to the women, injustice happening to a lot of people who are not heterosexual, or and I've seen that, and it really is so disturbing. But having said that, like Sabrina said, we can then reach out with support, with peace, and sometimes knowing that and then doing something about it is also, a big deal, because then you are strengthened in your values. You then strengthen in your belief system that yes, people who think alike can then step up and do something about it. And that's when, like you both said, where there is darkness, there is going to be light. Where there is despair, there is going to be hope. Where there is fear, there is going to be faith. So I think that's where we come in, and that's where we strengthen, not just with ourselves, but with the community around, with the support of people who think alike. And that's where we again start raising that vibe, that positiveness, that compassion, the love, the peace, the joy. And yes, there's always going to be chaos. We know that in this world there's always going to be chaos, and we also know that we can beat that chaos in the smallest way, but it can be the biggest way also. So I think it's just really first starting with grounding yourself and really having the practice. So being really mindful, being very aware of how this affects you, how this affects your body, how it affects your thinking, how it affects the way you speak. And then really being aware of that and working on that first, be it journaling, be it gratitude, be it mindfulness, be it meditation, really being present and being still. Because when you are still, in that stillness of your heart, you will really receive that peace. And with that peace, you'll be able to go so forward to be able to help. And like Jill said, and Sabrina said, that when you know you've got to step up, you step up. And then you just do it, but you have to do it. You do it for yourself first, and then you're able to do it for others. And I think that's knowing that no matter what happens around you, you are protected, you are guided, you are guarded, and you are supported through the spirit, through the people, through the practices, through the self-development. So I think that really helps. So yes, I think with gratitude, with meditation, mindfulness, journaling, speaking life over situations. So I speak life over, Jill's friend, that she will be healthy and people will support her and she will rehabilitate quicker. Again, in situations like that, like I see that there's a lot of things happening in India that really impacts me, and I still have traumas. I still, if I have to step into that country, it scares me. It really does scare me. And I just then protect myself first with, like God's protection. The angels are around me. And these are like spiritual practices. And I'm like, I also protect everyone who's vulnerable right now. And I see them that they're protected, they're whole, and nothing can go wrong. And no matter what happens, that they are safe and we are safe. So this is what happens when every time if I used to step out of the house, I used to feel very unsafe and vulnerable being a woman. And even recently, I was, it's so silly, right? I was at the ATM and I wanted to get some money out and I was like putting my card in and I started panicking because the card wouldn't come back out. And I started panicking and I got jitters because I was like, oh, I don't want another issue now. And I had to calm myself in that moment, in that split second. I was like, it's going to come out. You're okay. It's all right. And I could see the lady at the till, like just watching me, like, oh, what is she up to? And I could see that judgmental eyes. And I'm like, I'm all right. I'm okay. And no matter how she sees me. And then we had to interact because I had to go to the till to get the money out because the ATM machine. And so I had a conversation and she was like, a little bit judgmental. But then I spoke with love because I didn't speak with judgment. And then she spoke back because she was like, oh, she's all right. She doesn't look dodgy. And so, that interaction was a peaceful interaction then. Also, I would like to say is as soon as you identify and are aware that there are people or places that is going to create that disbalance or a bit of uncertainty, you have to be aware and keep your boundaries safe. That's where, again, be it family members where you know that they're going to keep going on and on and on, you have to keep safe boundaries. And boundaries is respecting yourself. So again, chaos comes in many different ways, not just the society, not the environment, but it could be people. It could be people who are so dysregulated that they impact on your nervous system regulation. And that's when you've got to keep yourself safe with the right boundaries where you respect yourself and that way they are able to then respect you. So I feel it covers a lot of different various aspects of life where you've got to come back to yourself, create these rituals, create practices, create this mindfulness where you feel safe, and then you step up so that you can then serve others. Like both Jill and Sabrina said, that's where compassion comes in, that's where love comes in, that's where support comes in. So yes, I truly believe practices are very, very essential for your daily living.
Yeah.
Yeah. You made me think about, I think I've shared with both of you that I'm staying at my doctor friend's house, and he lives in a smart house. And at first I was like, what does that mean? Like a smart house? But it's like everything is, there's alarm systems everywhere. There's cameras everywhere. It's every door that you open or close has a sensor on it. So at all times, he knows kind of what's going on with his house. And I mean, I get that, I mean, that's what he's into and that's whatever, it's fine. But I'm so old fashioned that I forget about that kind of stuff. And sometimes I'll open a door, and maybe I'm not dressed fully, or maybe, there's stuff that I have to remember I'm on camera a lot. And I'm like, oh no. And so, like going outside with my little dog at 2:00 in the morning, with barely anything on, because there's nobody out there except a bear, maybe. But, and so it's that kind of, but so I've kind of, over the last several months, I've had to adjust to that because it's like we live in the Jetson era, the futuristic era. Y'all probably too young to remember the Jetsons, but it was a cartoon when I was growing up about the future. And they had like a watch, with a phone. I mean, with like a Apple Watch. They had that back then. They could talk and see the person and stuff like that. So we live in that now. And, so anyway, I'm out of town on a job, and I shared this. I want to share it because it's along the lines of chaos. I came up to Blowing Rock, which is a very beautiful, beautiful part of North Carolina. Very high elevation. It's actually cold here today. It's about 58 right now. So it's windy, but it's beautiful weather. So I come up, and the homeowner told me, I've got an alarm system, and I had written it in a notebook. And of course, came and undid the house. And all of a sudden I went, oh no, the alarm. So I run back to the truck. I'm trying to find my notebook, and finally made it back in. And the thing's like beep, 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 beep. And I'm like, okay, woo. So I'm plugging in the numbers, and then it's off. And I'm like, good, okay, all is well. So I'm continue to bring my stuff in and out. And my next trip out, I would say maybe 8 minutes had gone by since I had undone the alarm. There's two white male cops with hands on guns ready for me. And it shocked me when I saw the guy's face, because I thought it was maybe a neighbor just coming over to say hello or something. I go, hey. And he's like, hold it right there. And I started laughing, because it was like, is this for real? And then I saw, their things, their bulletproof vests, their artillery. And I was just like, oh man. And I said, hey, I'm the worker. And they were like, we need ID. What are you doing here? And they gave me the 3rd degree. And so that's when I had to go within myself and calm myself. You talk about self-regulation. So I had to tap in and say, I'm fine. I'm safe. If they shoot me, I'm still okay. Like if they hurt my dog, that's another story. But, it was kind of like I had to calm myself inside, because I started to have a little bit of like panic, because I thought, are they for real? Like they're really thinking that I'm robbing this house? And, and it took about 25 minutes for me to get in the clear from that. But you know what? I started talking about food. I was like, hey, I need something to eat. Where do I go to eat? And then that got them off of their high horse of, being the protector of the community. And then they kind of fell into, oh, well, there's not much open around today, but try this place and try this. So thank goodness, but see, that's the art of intuition. That's knowing how to go in. And that's what I said. I've lived this way my whole life, having to navigate through superior attitudes and superior authority figures, because I came from a place of dysfunction and violence and stuff like that. And I was always petrified of authority. I was always afraid of police and anybody, because that just meant bad news for me. And so being able now to embrace them and say, they're only here to try to help. They're only here to protect this person's house. They're not trying to hurt me, but I had to do a lot of self-talking behind the scenes to get myself, so that I could finish the day and get them out of here. Because at another point in my life, that could have been very devastating, the way that they were kind of, and also I think my energy helped to bring them down a notch. So, it's just these daily little nuggets in life that we're faced with certain experiences that we get to use these tools, of our inner world and our inner guidance, that says, watch out, be careful. And it's not about the thoughts, it's more about the feelings. When I feel if I feel comfortable around somebody, that's an indicator. Sometimes your thoughts will be like, oh, they seem okay, but your heart's pounding out of your chest, something's wrong. And that's the thing I started learning to really pay attention to, was how does it feel to be around this person or this situation? And that's really helped me a lot. So,
Yeah.
I completely agree. I think there are many situations that we come across like that. And it's all about self-regulation and how to respond rather than react, because then that really spirals the whole situation and yourself and your nervous system, spiraling down. Whereas if you are calm and collected and present and regulated, then you are able to manage yourself, manage your response, manage the situation around. So definitely, I think just regulating yourself and knowing, being very intuitive, being really tapped in, is essential. Definitely.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. I mean, I'm the person that was always like, oh, I want to protect animals and I want to protect this. And so for a long time, I was, seeing these like posts on social media, and my heart was getting hurt and lots of things. And then I was feeding it more and more. And sometimes so now my practice is about stepping back, and one of the things that I find really, really helpful is to forgive people for not being who you hoped or wished they would be. And there's lots of different things in humanity that I call them triggers. We're all triggered by certain things, and just to forgive the people or the situation for not being how you hoped or wished it would be, and also for forgiving yourself. And so I have found that really profound in practice. To The way I see it is that whatever's going on in humanity, it's out of fear. It's out of fear. And so there's lots of things going on this earth that is linked to fear and actions from fear. So
Mhm.
if I bring my fear to the table, then it's just more fear. It's a collective of fear. So it's starting to learn how to step back, to do some forgiveness work. And a wonderful practice is to just open your heart and send love to the whole situation. Should it be a country? Should it be a person? Should it be an experience? And Marianne Williamson touches on this so much. And I love that practice of stepping back and trying to understand that this is coming from fear. This is everybody doing the best that they can with the knowledge that they have. And so it gives us a more holistic view of what's going on in the world. And certainly, I was very guilty of getting triggered with. I'm a massive animal lover, and this is not right, and this is not right, and this is not right. And then I thought, I kind of reflected and went, Sabrina, how do you know about all this? Because you're feeding yourself looking for this. You're looking for the injustices. So it's about stepping back, and instead of watching a video where something is a little more negative, looking at something where there's acts of kindness going on in the world, restoring faith in humanity again, restoring faith in each other's hearts. So that would be my biggest take from how to calm the chaos, or how to navigate through chaos. And in the inner work, the practices that you do daily to connect with yourself, that starts to calm the chaos inside, and to recognize the triggers, recognize why certain things are triggering us. Because if we were all to sit down, girls, and chat about what our triggers are, they would all be very different. And so they're coming from our past experiences, they're coming from our experiences of the world, and they're shaped into the triggers, the things that upset us. And so a lot of what's happening inside of us sometimes can get projected outwards into the outward world as well.
Yeah.
I agree. And I just want to speak on that very, very briefly. A lot of interactions can be sometimes negative, if there is an argument. But when we step back as observers rather than participants, when you reflect on that, you can then say that, their life experience is completely different, and they are coming from where they have done the work on themselves. Where are they healing from? what's their state of consciousness at present, because everybody operates on a very different state of consciousness. And I think we've got to be aware of that. Not everybody's going to be on your wavelength. Not everyone is going to be the way you think, the way you speak, the way you do things, So we've got to be so aware and reflect on the fact that everyone comes from their journey of feeling, their state of consciousness, where they are at. And that's why you've got to be so non-judgmental and step back and look from an observer point of view. And I think that would then help you again to bring that peace into the situation and into that circumstance. And I've had that, ongoing for a lot of interactions where people are just angry. They're just angry. And then you can fuel it by being angry and trying to, stop that fire. However, you can also step back and reflect love and reflect peace and understand that they are coming from their pain and they are coming from their suffering and they are coming from their journey where probably they don't know how to heal. And it's the same. And I always try and respect people wherever they are with their journey. And I think that's where the non-judgmental comes, where you respect them, you give them space, but sometimes you cannot expect people to have your same level of intelligence or the same level of awareness. And I think that's essential, that you always understand everyone is different and you do not judge them for where they are at this present moment. So yeah.
It's you were talking about the triggers. And I think for me yesterday with my friend's accident, I got really triggered because of a past injury that I had. And it brought up a lot of that trauma, because it was a very traumatic accident. And, I think I was almost panicked for her, because I felt my own panic from back then, and how I was, 32 years old, and how I was going to try to live in the world. And I wasn't even sure I would walk again the day that the accident happened. So I felt like I needed to do something. And it's something just moved me that said, just get on social media. And I did. And I'm grateful that I did it. Also, the things that happen along the way that are catastrophic or whatever, a lot of times that's where our compassion and our empathy are grown. That's where those are cultivated. And I feel like, I've become a lot more empathetic the older I've gotten in my life, because I have had so many experiences that have taught me to try not to judge where that person's at, because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And to try to have as much compassion as I can, even if they're not a very nice person, a lot of times, because it could be that they're just having a really horrible day. And, so that for me has been a big journey to just allow the compassion and the empathy to kind of come out. And, I practice that. Like if I'm going through the grocery store or something, and the person that's checking you out, the cashier a lot of times is in a hurry, or they're stressed, or they're apathetic, they're numb, they're and just to smile at that person, just to smile and thank them, and really thank them, not just be like, thank you, have a good day, see you later, but but really connect and say, hey, you know what, thank you so much for doing this today. It seems like you're pretty busy, and I just appreciate you, checking me out, and take a moment and connect with that person, if they're your server in a restaurant or wherever, and just give that piece of yourself as an opening. And that's where I think the bridge to the heart happens. It's not something that just happens miraculously overnight. Now I'm a compassionate person. My compassion, I feel like, has come through my own personal pain, and how to take that pain and flip that And, you know, and that's Louise Hay straight up and down. That's the work that she talks about, and is being able to flip it to the positive. And how do I use this? And how do I see this in a different light than seeing it as gloom and doom, but seeing it as, wow, what an opportunity. And even in the chaos and all the politics and all that stuff going on, what an opportunity. You know, what an opportunity this is for, you know, people like us, woo woo, whatever you want to call us, light workers, empaths. I just tend to think that we're just people who are working on our lives, and that, you know, we care about ourselves. We've learned to love ourselves. And therefore, when you love yourself, you tend to want to love others. And, you know, that was the whole point of self love, was so that I can turn around and love my neighbor as thyself. And so all that stuff, all those things, all the tragedies, all the good, bad, and different that happens to us, it's all a learning nugget. And it's a way to take those experiences and share those with someone else who may need you one day, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
definitely. The only person that we can ever control is ourselves. That's the only person we can ever control. And so I heard it described as, you know, imagine you wear a glass, and whatever's in you as you go out into the world, you're pouring that onto everybody. So, what is your glass full of? Is it full of, you know, in the morning when you get up, is it full of love? Is it full of joy? Is it full of excitement? Or is it full of dread? Is it full of fear? Is it full of negative emotions? And so, you know, if you think of that analogy, you are the contents of that glass. And as you go out into the world, every single person you meet, you're pouring the contents of that glass onto them with every interaction. And so it comes back to the only person that we ever can control in any situation is ourselves, and how we feel and what we contribute out into the world. And I think that's a wonderful journey of the Louise Hay work, isn't it, girls? And the spirituality and the awareness is knowing that, okay, what's in my cup? What's in my cup for me? And what am I pouring out into the world? And taking that responsibility, and forgiving yourself if it's not full of hope some days, or if it's not full of joy, to forgive yourself and be more gentle with yourself, but really to become aware of, what am I contributing to myself, and what am I contributing to the world? And is my heart open? And is there times when my heart could be more open? And how can I reflect on what's happening around me? And how can I calm myself amongst the storms? And what tools have I got in my box? What tools have I got as I've gathered over the years? So, and there's lots of beautiful visualizations that we can do for humanity as well, which is amazing.
Definitely, I agree with that. I think the collective visualization for bringing in peace, for bringing in harmony, for bringing in love, for safety, for support is so essential. But it's these little interactions we have in our day-to-day life, like your delivery drivers, them bringing you, you know, your parcels in, just a smile and a big thank you. And like Jill said, like Sabrina said, it's pouring your peace out onto them to make their days better. And I see a lot of people, like even when driving, they have a lot of road rage. Now, these are like small examples how you can like manage in your day-to-day activities, but there's a lot of road rage ongoing. And it's about, again, regulating yourself in those moments where you are not just regulating yourself and wiring yourself for peace and calm and, you know, harmony, but also it then has a good effect on what's happening around you. So I've had a lot of people where road rage or delivery drivers just being rude. And then that again gets onto your day, and then they spread their rudeness to everyone else. So it all begins with you. So if you spread that peace, that love, that care is definitely going to spread on, to them, and they'll be able to take steps back and say, oh, that person was nice to me. Oh, and then they have that step in their the spring in the step where they like go and they're like, okay, it's not all that bad. So it's really sharing that smile, that laughter, that peace, that gratitude, saying thank you. And sometimes you get so used to these practices in your day-to-day activities where things just become easier for you. Interactions become easier. Things just make sense then, because you can see the difference once you start working on yourself. It just makes everything so much easier around you. So yes, I agree to all these wonderful things and ways that you can make life easier for yourself, but also make life easier around you.
Yeah, I've got a good remedy for road rage. So, you know, I'm from Atlanta originally, and Atlanta is like one of the main traffic places in the United States. Los Angeles, Atlanta, I think Dallas. But anyway, after I moved up to Asheville, the people would say like, "Oh, honey, you don't want to drive downtown at 5 o'clock because of the traffic," and I'm like, what traffic? Like it's moving, it's not traffic, because I was used to sitting in my vehicle for 2 and 3 hours to get home back in the day with no cell phones. So people would have actually put a book on their steering wheel or the newspaper on the steering wheel and just sit, and you just inch along, and you would feel like you were going to lose your mind. Well, anyway, so now what I do when I get in any kind of, because now I live in the land of big trucks with big gun racks and that kind of thing. And, they will get right up on your tail and just be like, yeah, all aggressive. And, I have a little Shih Tzu, and Minnie Boom Boom is her nickname. I will reach over, because I have pretty long, strong hands and arms. I will reach over and bring her over and hold her right here. And when they come up beside me, they don't see me. They see the Shih Tzu. She's like my Shih Tzu shield. And I will hold her, and I mean, she's so tiny now. She's really gotten old and frail, but I think she knows what I'm doing, because she'll kind of like look at him like, "You gonna mess with us?" And it's the cutest thing, but it's like, but I don't even know why I did that, but it diffuses. You look out your window, you see a cute little animal. Hopefully, you're not going to still be enraged. And if you are, that's your deal. But I just, it's something I just started doing, and I don't even know why. But I would just, the minute I feel aggression or that kind of energy in traffic, boom, I grab my little dog and hold her. And I talk to her the whole time, and I'll sit there and go, "You having a good day?" "Yes, you are. You're so sweet." And then I let them encounter that situation instead of me, shooting them a bird or whatever. Like, I just don't do that kind of stuff. I just try to, like, in my own little world, in my own little vehicle with my own little Shih Tzu, love, love, love. That's all I can do, because we're all in this together. It's like, why make it harder? And I think when it's that rage and that struggle within people, it's not about the traffic. We know that. It is about way something else. And that's like why I think right now is such an important time, because it's not about these political things. It's not about the surface things that we're seeing. There's a way deeper issue going on here. And once again, Louise Hay's theory is that the world is suffering from a lack of love. And that love begins with me. And when I walk into a place now, I feel very, most of the time, I'm not afraid. There was a time in my life where I would just have to gear myself up to even go to a movie. because I had such anxiety about being around the unknown and people that I don't know, and are they dangerous? And I'm not like a little shrinking flower. I mean, I'm pretty tough, but still, I just didn't like to set myself up or put myself in situations that could be dangerous or confrontive. And so that's why I'm very selective about who I hang out with, who I do things with, the places I go. I mean, even a restaurant that I feel might have some dark energy or some stuff that maybe not too good going, I just don't go there. First off, I'm not going to, contribute money to a place that's carrying any kind of energy like that. So I think it's just honing in on the healthier side of things, and participating in even like buying local food, going to places that support local farmers and that kind of stuff. I mean, I think all of that stuff counts, and it may sound like such a tiny little thing, but if everybody got on board, what a different world we would live in. And Buckminster Fuller is somebody that I've really, really learned about over the last, 10 years. He's a very complex man. He was way ahead of his time, and he had such ideas and visions of how the world could be, and how his theory was there's enough for everybody. There is enough on this planet for everybody to have a place to live, to have food on their table, to thrive. And I believe in what he talked about, and I truly believe that that whole group of people, and actually there's a place here in Black Mountain, North Carolina, that was called the Black Mountain College, and it was where Timothy O'Leary, Buckminster Fuller, a lot of these like creative critical thinkers came here way back. Like I think it might have been in the 40s. And who would have thought, like in this little podunk town, that they were hanging out up there building a geodesic dome? So I know that I was pulled here, 25 years ago because of that kind of energy. And I knew there was something better for me here than being back in Atlanta in chaos, because that's kind of why I left Atlanta. It was traffic and chaos and that fast pace, gimme, 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 getting more. I mean, even the poor people are rich. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody's got a brand new car, and it's that whole world that I was like, this is just not me. But finding, where I did fit in, and I'm so grateful that I made that move, because I would be a different person today if I hadn't have removed myself from that energy. And you know what sparked it? A lady ran into me with her car at Starbucks one morning. I had a long, big landscape trailer and a truck, and I had all that kind of equipment and all that. And I had parked in a place where I parked every day. And I would meet a worker, this woman that worked for me. I would meet her there and pick her up there. And I got out of my vehicle, and a lady drove up in a brand new Mercedes, and she was on her cell phone, and she just hit me. Like I was walking, and she hit me, but I was aware enough to jump back in time. And I threw my hands up like, what? Like, and she started cussing me out. And I didn't have any self-regulation back then, y'all. And my heart starts pounding. I feel like I'm gonna like, uh-oh. And I walked very quickly and followed her to her parking space. And I came up to her window, and I just started talking to her through the window. She wouldn't roll the window down, and she stayed on her cell phone and was like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just staring at her. And she opened the window about that much. And she says, what do you want? What do you want? And I said, you ran over me. You ran into me with your car. I said, I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And so she called the police on me. And my friend was in the Starbucks looking out going, oh my God. And I said, whatever, and I went into the Starbucks, and I told everybody in there, that lady out there ran into me with her car. And, but it was like, but now I don't know how I would handle that. I would handle it differently now. But, when things like that happen, if you're not equipped, you don't know where you're going to go with something like that because it's so fast, and emotions rise really quick. And, she was apparently having a bad day. She was having a very disconnected day because she wasn't paying attention to her surroundings, for one thing. But now, looking back on that, I remember, I would handle that differently now. But, in life, we're going to be faced with all kinds of little things like that. And it's just about how to reel it in and do the next right thing for ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, ladies, it's been a wonderful conversation.
Yeah.
And we're all navigating different things in our lives, and we're in different parts of the world, and we're all navigating lots of different things. Because chaos can come in so many forms, as we were sort of outlining there. So, any one thing that you would do every day, girls, to keep yourself regulated, what would be at the top of your list? So, I'll go first. Gratitude, gratefulness. So looking at what there is in my life that I can feel blessed about, that I can feel grateful for, and breathing as well, taking time to breathe. What about
Yeah.
yourself, Jill?
For me, gratitude, very important. Appreciation, taking care of the spiritual, mental, physical, drinking a lot of water. I think is super important. Water is the key to life, just like air is the key to life. Breathing, deep breathing. We're such a shallow breathing society. And, when a person passes away, I've spoken to different hospice nurses and people that work with death and dying. And I was actually in the room with my great grandmother passed away, and there was this like, she had been in a coma. And all of a sudden, I couldn't believe it. I was the only one in the room. And I was only like 20 something years old when this happened. But I got up and I went over and I whispered in her ear and I said, "Tell Nanny," I said, "Hey." And Nanny was her daughter, who was my grandmother. And this was my great grandmother. And she went, "Ah," and she left. And, but the more I've learned about the deep breathing is that we are such shallow breathers because nobody wants to be large. Nobody wants to expand. We've been taught to keep it down and suppress ourselves, especially as females, and to take that deep breath and to really use our voice and to really go into that diaphragm. That's kind of like now you're getting out of control. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, breathe deep. And so I'm glad you brought up breath, Sabrina, because it's so important. And yeah, but there's a lot of things. And Mignon, I'll pass it to you.
Yes, for me, it would be definitely being still and just really centering myself. And whenever there is panic, they always say, get back to your breathing. So, yes, it's all about being heart centered and breathing and being then grateful for everything that you have, but also accepting all these triggers that come up. And how do you deal with that is you dig deeper. You've got to accept your anger, you've got to accept your darkness, you've got to accept your fear, you've got to accept that there is lack or whatever that comes up. I think accepting that and then working on that. And the best way you can do is again by journaling, writing it down, acknowledging it that it's there. I think we try to suppress ourselves as society by ignoring things, and that thing will keep coming up until you address it. So that becomes a pattern. So that's why it's about being still, getting into your heart-centered space, breathing, so really connecting with your body, and then whatever comes up, acknowledge it, accept it, write it down, work on it, dig deeper, and really start connecting with yourself. So for me, that helps.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And also getting with people that you love and that you connect to, like us three getting together
Yeah.
doing this is so beneficial because it's like being accountable. It's like checking in with somebody and saying, hey, you know, I had this happen to me and blah, 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 and then getting their feedback and being open to the feedback, you know, and not being so critical of ourselves and just, I think that's super important too. So I
Yeah.
love you guys a lot.
Love you. Surround yourself with people you love and people who love you. And I think that's also very essential, is to surround yourself with people who
Yeah.
appreciate you. So I appreciate you, ladies. I love you both. And thank you for being over here. Thank you for sharing your experiences. It has, again, been a wonderful, wonderful time together. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
All right.
you. Bye.
Bye.